The downfall of Game of Thrones should be a criminal offense. You ruin a great TV show?
Right to jail.
You underwrite character arcs?
Believe it or not, jail, right away.
You fumble the ending to one of the biggest shows in history.
Right to jail, right away.
Game of Thrones used to be the show. Back in its day, crowds would gather, group chats would explode, workplaces would grind to a halt.
Holy fucking shit.
Because people needed to talk about whatever insanity happened last night. It was prestige TV at the highest level. Then came the dark times.
Before the dark times. Before the Empire.
The rise of bad writing, half-baked arcs, and character decisions that felt like they were pulled from some fan fiction mass crowd-pleaser hat. A show built on subtlety and political maneuvering suddenly turned into a loud rush machine of plot armor and dragon-based problem-solving. Today, we are talking about the rise and eventual fall of Game of Thrones. Part 1, The Rise. Game of Thrones aired on April 17, 2011, with showrunners D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, two established writers best known for their truly groundbreaking work on projects like X-Men Origins Wolverine and the Halo movie that never actually happened. They were adapting a book series called A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, but we'll get to him in the books later. The show was received extremely well in its opening season and known quickly as a tight fantasy political drama. And for a fantasy series, it was shockingly grounded. There are hints of fantastical elements, but most of the magic, dragons, and mythical creatures are treated as relics of a distant past.
The Night's Watch protects the realm.
Yes. Against grumpkins and snarks and all the other monsters your wetness warned you about.
Most characters don't even believe in myths or legends anymore. Magic is rare, dragons are extinct, or at least they're supposed to be. What really set the show apart early on is the intertwining dynamics between all the great houses. In short, there's a lot of fucking tea in Westeros. You can point to literally any character, and there's a page-long breakdown of their history, their grudges, and their relationships with every other family in the realm. And something that doesn't get enough credit in these early seasons is just how economical the storytelling is. Some people thought Season 1 moved a little slowly, but honestly, that's something I appreciate way more in hindsight. Things take time to happen, plans take time to unfold, and despite how much exposition there is, it never feels dry or boring. Mostly because half the time it's being delivered by a naked person in a bathtub explaining the history of the last 300 years. Just like with The Big Short, if you put a baddie in a bathtub, I'm gonna listen to you talk about how Gandalf defeated Grindelwald to take control of Narnia, or whatever the hell these ladies are talking about. There is so much lore that needs to be explained for this world to work, and every scene pulls double duty, either establishing the current political dynamics or explaining the history that led to them. Take this early scene between Robb and Ned. In just a few minutes, we learn that this guy's the king, this guy serves him, they're old friends who fought in a war together. The king is married into this blonde family who are clearly snooty and think they're better than everyone else. And oh, by the way, the king used to be in love with Ned's sister. The queen is absolutely aware of this, and the first thing Robb does when he gets there is insist on visiting her crypt. That is an insane amount of character, history, and tension dumped all into one scene. The tea is already boiling, and the episode ends in one of the most shocking moments in television history at that time. Back in 2011, it was genuinely pretty wild to turn on HBO and see a brother and sister having sex on TV. Of course, unless you're an Alabama fan. And that alone would have been wild enough, but they shove a kid out of a tower, it's complete sensory overload, and it does an incredible job of instantly investing you in the Stark and Lannister conflict. The real battlefield of the early seasons, though, is dialogue. Compared to the later seasons where there's a massive battle every other episode, the early seasons have very little large-scale physical action. That's not to say there isn't violence or fighting, but it's usually on a smaller scale, and the big battles tend to happen like once per season. And because of that, they matter more. Those fights carry weight because the show isn't constantly numbing you with spectacle. Instead, most of the conflict happens through conversations, negotiations, threats, and power plays. Words are weapons. And there was no greater wordsmith warrior in the early seasons than Tyrion fucking Lannister. I bring him up specifically because I genuinely think The worst character assassinations are him and Jaime. What makes Tyrion so special early on is how clearly you see his intelligence at work.
And I have my mind, and a mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone.
He uses his words and knowledge as a weapon so well. Take the scene with Catelyn midway through season 1. Tyrion has just been kidnapped and is being told he's being taken to Winterfell to answer for his supposed crimes. But the moment he opens his mouth, he seamlessly deduces that he's actually being taken to the Eyrie.
You said we were riding for Winterfell.
I did. Often and loudly.
Unless a shadow cat ate me first.
Shadow cats and hill tribes are the least of your concern.
The Eastern Road. We're going to the Vale.
It's such a small detail, but it tells you everything. He knows the land, he knows the people, and he knows how they think. I think it takes a really special kind of person to outwit and elicit information from Catelyn Stark. And over again, the show makes it clear that Tyrion is exactly that kind of person. His mind is so sharp that he's usually the smartest person in any room, no matter who he's talking to. Earlier in the season, he verbally dismantles Theon by deliberately pushing every insecurity he knows Theon has, specifically to bait him into revealing where Catelyn has gone.
Your master doesn't seem to like Lannisters.
He's not my master.
No, of course not.
He wasn't feeling well.
She's not in Winterfell, is she? Where did she go?
Milady's whereabouts.
Milady? Your loyalty to your captors is touching.
In short, Tyrion is the master baiter of rage. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Tyrion in the early seasons is an absolute monster in the best way possible. Which is also such a contrast to our pseudo-main character of season 1, which is Ned Stark. Simply put, Ned is bad at playing the game. He trusts people he shouldn't, he doesn't lie, he doesn't scheme, he doesn't maneuver, and that's exactly why he works so well as a contrast to what we get later with Tyrion when he's Hand of the King, who in season 2 is nothing but plots, manipulation, and wit. Ned plays everything straight up, and that ultimately leads to his demise. That's not to say he isn't witty at times or doesn't have great dialogue. One of my favorite lines in the entire show comes from him.
You grew up with actors. You learned their craft and you learnt it well. But I grew up with soldiers. I learned how to die a long time ago.
That line is raw as fuck. And when I watched this show the first time, it was already in the middle of season 4 or 5, but nothing had been spoiled for me yet. So when episode 9 rolled around, and it's not even a season finale, and the most noble, heroic character, literally the fantasy protagonist archetype, gets fucking beheaded, my jaw, like millions of other people, was on the floor. That was such a ballsy choice from George R.R. Martin back in the day, and it wouldn't be the last time the show pulled some insane shit like that outside of a season finale. People speculated for years after Ned died that he would come back somehow, but he never did. Sean Bean did a fantastic job, and you could say that about almost everyone. I watched the show before I read any of the books, and to be clear, I've only really read the first 2 and some parts of the others for this video, but I only see the actors from the show. The casting was phenomenal. This is basically the who's who of the British acting corps. Peter Dinklage is the only American in the show. A little post-editor note here, there was actually some American actors that I missed out on, so my bad. The rest are British actors with a handful of Harry Potter alumni, including Tonks, Mr. Filch, and of course, Hermione's mom. Speaking of them fantasy nerd books though, let's talk about them a little bit, because they're kind of important when we talk about what happened to this show. Early on, I actually like most of the changes the TV writers made. I don't really remember anything crucial being cut. For example, the Tower of Joy flashbacks Ned has in the first book go a long way in helping the reader predict who Jon Snow really is. I understand why that was cut though, it might have made the reveal less impactful. My favorite change though, from book to show, is the inclusion of Tywin Lannister in season 2. The entire relationship he has with Arya Stark isn't in the second book at all, but introducing him earlier and letting us see a different side of him was a great setup for seasons 3 and 4. Those are good changes, and not a problem. But once we get into season 5, some of the changes that were made in seasons 3 and 4 start to have ripple effects, especially for characters like Sansa and Brienne. Before we dive into the deep, depressing waters of the later seasons though, I want to hit on 2 more things I absolutely love from the first 4 seasons. Season 3 is bleak. The status quo for almost everyone shifts dramatically, and mostly for the worse. Tyrion is immediately getting shit on by his dad, Jaime can't even masturbate correctly anymore, Theon starts his 2-season arc of getting physically and mentally tortured, and by the end of the show, the man can't even look a glizzy in the eyes. And for how dark it is, there's still a little hope coming from Robb Stark's side of the story. That is, until one of the most batshit crazy episodes ever. The Red Wedding is sick as fuck. If Ned Stark's death was an earthquake, this shattered my entire world. Robb gets way more attention in the show than he does in the books. He doesn't even have a POV chapter in the novels. but the show gives him his quiet moments with his wife, moments of leadership, moments of triumph, and then they fucking execute him outside of the season finale just like his dad.
The Lannisters send their regards.
The reactions to this episode are almost as iconic as the episode itself. It once again surprised me in the best way possible, and really made the show what it was known for. And finally, the really good shit, Season 4.
You're gonna die for some chickens.
Someone is.
I was originally going to go into a deeper dive into the Hound chicken scene, because it's a perfect example of the writers still knowing how to build tension. It's one of my favorite scenes in the season. But instead, I want to talk about the Battle for the Wall. This is my favorite episode in the show. I know the Battle of the Bastards gets a lot of love, and we'll talk about that later, but for me, this episode is right up there with it, maybe even a little above it. What makes this battle so special is that the stakes are actually smaller than most of the big battles in the series. This isn't an army storming a capital, it's not about reclaiming your home or saving the entire world. It's just about survival. The wildlings are trying to survive the coming winter, and the Night's Watch is just trying to survive until morning. I love the ebb and flow of this episode. Characters on both sides getting moments to shine. The small choices each individual makes are what count in this battle. One of my favorite shots in all of Game of Thrones is the long take that pans across Castle Black, showing the chaos as the battle unfolds all at once. And the episode ends in one of the most touching moments in the entire series. Jon and Ygritte were the best romance in the show. Their chemistry was incredible. The actors are married in real life, which just adds to it, but what really gets me is the final image. Jon holding Ygritte as the music plays softly over the battlefield. For a show adapted from a series called A Song of Ice and Fire, splitting the frame between a cold blue ice and a warm orange fire is just beautiful. That's Game of Thrones at its best. Game of Thrones was good, until it wasn't. And I wanted to spend this video reminding people just how great it once was, because the greatness makes the fall hit even harder. We covered the rise. In the next video, we'll cover the fall of one of the most spectacular shows in television history. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Now fuck off.